Are we back? Yeah, my internet's been doing that a bunch recently. It's just been disconnecting for like a second and then coming back, but obviously when you're streaming, that means it stops. At least I assume I was only disconnected for like a second. Clearing this path so I can run fast. Yeah, it's weird. Internet, eh? Do you think we'd have it figured out by now? You are not something I want to fight, but I guess I need to. Bye. He's gonna jump back up, right? I'm not going down. Not sure if it's Twitch or Virgin. I've definitely seen people say things about both. I've definitely been having issues with Virgin because it's not just happening to Twitch streams for me. But I've definitely also seen people say it has been happening to them with just Twitch streams. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe both. But yeah, there was obviously the chat issues that we're all having recently. My chat issues have not been too bad. I'm just gonna keep hitting this guy with missiles. I'm not gonna let him do it. I'm not interested in a fair fight. Okay. Can't kill the ones in the tubes. Oh god. You guys are not gonna just let me walk through here. Oop. It's kind of funny they essentially added a reload mechanic to this game. God damn it, we're never going to get to the place we're meant to go. This next room looks big. Oh, it's one of these fuckers. I think these guys would learn. Oh. How was your stream today, by the way, Crash? I didn't really get to tune in. I'm normally busy at work the last couple of days, so I've not really got a lot of watching streams while working kind of thing going on. Which is usually what I do. I just have everyone's streams on the background, but I need to properly focus. Not as much done in RPG Maker despite having 40 minutes in it. Made barracks area and a cave entrance. That sounds good though. The RPG Maker stuff's fun. I'm enjoying watching this. I don't have a lot of input, but I'm enjoying watching it. And hey, I made that one sprite, so. Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing. It kind of reminds me of when Giant Bomb used to do their streams where they made Mario Maker levels, and their community in the chat would like call out ideas for it, only, you know, way more elaborate than a Mario level. Yeah, it seems like a good idea, like switch it up and do different game ideas, different engines. I assume there's newer versions of RPG Maker than, was it 2003? You can make something on Unity. It's just the time to get into it.
Maurice.
Oh, a new version might have came out this year. Crazy. Maurice is dead. Crazy old Maurice. Always raving. She kind of looks like Samus. But I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just, you know, the modelers could make one woman. You know? Hard to tell. Could use an SRPG maker. Yeah, that'd be cool. Codeless Game Boy Color engine. What one is that? Because I feel like I was looking at something similar to that recently as well. Game Maker would be cool as well. You could learn Godot. Godot's supposed to be fun. The guy I used to work with has spent a bunch of his time in recent years making tutorials for Godot. Oh my god, if you're going to venture into the tabs, you'll never be back. He has been making like tutorials for Godot for years, and he stopped doing kind of public facing ones because he got like hired by a company to do like some of their like internal training stuff, I think. But he just kind of got back to making like online course stuff for Godot like a couple of weeks before Unity pulled their shit, and everyone was like, what other free engines can we use? And Godot is now suddenly like really popular. Also, welcome in, Brad. How's it going? Yes, all of this for the ultimate goal of going to Tesco. Every year a new Tesco, I think.
Don't come near me! I know why you're here!
I never really thought about it, but if you were not privy to the fact that Samus is a good guy and you just saw this big, like, robotic looking armored person with a gun for a hand walking into a room with you,
No,
she'd probably be pretty scary.
I'm here to rescue you.
You're lying! I know the Galactic Federation wants to silence everyone who knows about our work here.
Damn, maybe the Galactic Federation aren't the good guys.
How can I trust you when your troops are willing to kill each other?
Oh shit, there's a traitor. It's definitely not the guy that was smirking maniacally last time that me and Crash both called as being the bad guy.
Stay away from me.
Definitely not that guy that looked incredibly suspicious at all times.
Listen to me. We're here to rescue you.
Oh.
Hurry, this way.
It's gonna barely worth it.
Wait.
I can tell you for a fact my local one is not.
Get out of here!
My local Tesco is kind of shit. But it's also the only big supermarket near me. Well, that's not true, there's a Lidl now. For a while it was the only big supermarket near me. Did you get permission for that jump? Can you get permission to shoot this transformer? See how it handles some missiles. Oh god, it handles them fine, it just runs me over. Hey buddy, how's your frozen arms doing? Oh god. He transformed. Instead of transforming from a car into a humanoid, he transformed from a forklift into a Robot Wars creation. I need to do damage somehow. God damn it. Well, that seems like a way to do damage. Also, I'm going to heal instead. Yeah, you called it actually. It actually is a transformer. Am I going to have to climb up onto these boxes? I don't think we can shoot those from down here. Oh no, I can. No, if the pointer doesn't work. So he freezes wheels. But then I need to back up enough space that I can shoot the thing that comes out his head. Or his top, I guess. It doesn't really have a head. It's not humanoid. Got a WDM for a particular successful moment in Sonic R speedruns. Really? Really? Take a look. We got That's very good. That is fantastic. I will get that added. Thank you for that, Crash.
The woman believed that the Galactic Federation was sent to the bottle
Oh god,
ship
there's story
to keep
happening.
those
I can
in
add
the
it
know
now.
from leaking information about the project.
I don't have the fast
And
upload
no
yet though.
wonder. She'd been attacked by someone wearing a Galactic Federation power suit, and she implied that Maurice was killed by another soldier. Considering the mortal danger we'd survived together, I had to agree with her. There was a traitor among
Oh nice, I would
us.
never have guessed. It looks
The wavelength of that monster's
like
cry
you've
is
cut
driving
the
other
background out of
creatures
it pretty
into a
cleanly.
frenzy. They've grown markedly more aggressive. It appears to be hiding in Sector 3 now. Take the elevator ahead of you to the main sector. From there, head to Sector 3. If you run into that thing, hit it with your plasma beam. You've got to take it down.
Everything's great. I trust everything the stranger is telling me now. Also, he just told me to use my plasma beam. I keep going into the wrong menu whenever I try to check this. He didn't unlock the plasma beam though. So he's just not going to unlock it until I actually find the monster? What if it like jumped me right now? What an asshole. Oh wait, there's an item back there. Let's see if we can get this item. Yeah, use the beam that I will not give you. I give you permission to use this beam, but not right now. How do we... What the fuck? What the fuck? There's an item over there. There has to be a way past these. Surely. There's not even like a grapple point. Maybe we'll just come back here later and it'll just be magically cleaned up. Or do we have to like go all the way back around? I bet we have to go all the way back around. God damn it. Is Samus listening to his authority by choice, or is he somehow in control of her? So she's doing it by choice. Samus is an independent contractor. She's a bounty hunter, technically. Not really, because that's not... She's bounty hunter in, like, the sci-fi, you know, fiction sense of the word, not in the term... Like, she's not hunting people that are skipping bail, you know?
The bottle ship had been turned into a nightmare replica of Zebes.
She's not hunting people that have bounties on their head. She's like a mercenary. But yeah, the military have no way to actually do that.
The plan the Federation wanted to keep so secret would be revealed. So they sent in an assassin. Someone to wipe out any survivors as well as anyone who learned about the secret project.
The baby.
KG, James, Anthony, and Adam. Could one of them really be a traitor?
Mm-hmm.
Until I found out who it was, I decided to call the traitor the Deleter.
That's a choice for a name, I guess.
On top of everything, I started to think about that woman. Was she the one who sent the distress signal?
The Deleter.
And could she be the person in charge here, Madeline Bergman? Either way,
yeah, why
I
not just
knew
call
I had
them
to
the traitor?
protect her. She would be targeted again.
Since Samus hasn't mentioned it, I'm guessing the fact that that woman looks quite a lot like Samus is actually just coincidental, and they just can't model multiple characters. But she looks quite a lot like, not like what Samus looks like just now when she's in Zero Suit and stuff like that, but what Samus looked like in the flashbacks when she was younger. Oh no, the Deleter deleted someone else. I've played Tekken, that's not what we kill. No one in Tekken has ever died from doing this. Have you ever seen the... He'll be back. He'll get revenge on his father. Hey, did you ever see the trailer for when Kazuya got announced for Super Smash Brothers? You and Kuma agree with Volcanic. Poor Kuma. Kuma believes that she's still alive. But yeah, the trailer when Kazuya got announced for Smash Bros. That has Kazuya just throwing all of the Smash Bros. Characters into a volcano. So good. And there was like an interview with Harada recently where he said that was like explicitly Sakurai's idea. Because Harada didn't want to have Kazuya throw Kirby into Volcano because he was like, no, people will hate us for doing that because everyone loves Kirby. And Sakurai's like, nah, Kazuya is gonna throw Kirby into fucking Volcano. Trust me. You know what? Sakurai knows what he's talking about. He was right. Yeah, Sakurai's like the reason that King of Fighters characters are in there as well, or it's because Sakurai's just a big fanboy for that stuff. Right, we obviously can't rob this way yet. Wait, can we speed boost? Can we speed boost up that? Let's find out. Nope. Nope. Yeah, dude does love his games. I don't know if you've watched, he has a YouTube series now. Like, now he's, I don't want to say semi-retired, but, you know, taking a break between Smash Brothers games is probably more accurate. Because he's already started doing the thing he does after every Smash Bros. Game, where up until that game comes out, he's like, I'm done with Smash Brothers after this. And then a few months after Smash Bros. Comes out, he's like, you know, if they're gonna make one anyway, I should probably be part of it. And it's like, dude, wow, you can't stay away. But he's been talking like that again recently, where he's like, said some comments here and there where he's like, you know, if I was to make another Smash Brothers, I'd probably change things up quite a lot. And it's like, yeah, F. But yeah, his YouTube videos are pretty good. Like he seems like a real chill guy. But he did one relatively recently where he was showing off some of his like games consoles and stuff. His insight's still really nice and it's really good. Yeah, it's a lot of the stuff that he talks about is pretty, you know, basic, but it's cool to hear someone that, you know, a lot of this stuff is basic because Sakurai and people that Sakurai has worked with made it the standard, you know? Like, he's one of the people that figured a lot of this shit out. Yeah, it's basic for us who did the game day, of course, yeah. But again, it's like, it's basic because people like him made it the standard, you know? Like, he's been doing this for a while. Oof. Close. Wait, do I want to... Oh god, what am I trying to hit? My instincts say I should hit this bit here, but I don't think that's actually going to do anything. Let's just try to go up this way first. This is obviously where we're meant to go. But there's an item on that one. So I guess there's a grab point here. Come back here. People losing the mind of the whole rain illusion. Yeah, I did see that. That was pretty funny. I remember, like, one of the first times I noticed that in a game was, I don't remember which game it was. But it was because it wasn't even, like, a localized thing. It was very clearly just a filter they'd put over the screen. So, like, it didn't interact with anything. It wasn't, like, in a 3D space. It was literally just, like, a 2D filter they put over the camera. Which is how a lot of games, honestly, even still do it. They're like, oh, it looks like rain because, you know, there's this rain effect. And but sometimes when it's done badly, you can tell it is just like a... It's just like a GIF over the front of it, basically. Hey, we got it. Seems so obvious when I'm not making games. Even when I'm not making games, but it just makes games a little more magical. Yeah, I agree. Most games still do it, but they tend to be better. Yeah. Well, it's easier now to do kind of like 3D effects for that kind of stuff. Even if it's like, you know, rendering a 2D image. Like, oh, there's a fucking boost thing in here for all that. Yeah, well, to be fair, like, the way textures work is magical. Like, I can understand people not realizing that, you know, having, yeah, you have like a rain shader that, or a water shader that you put over the top of something. It was the same with, and to be fair, I found this one pretty magical because it's such a really cool usage of it. When people first realized that in Spider-Man, all of the office buildings that you can like climb up the side of and see like the kind of 3D insides of the like office spaces and stuff like that, those were just like a shader. You know, that's all fake. Like it's not like they modeled out all of these things. They just stuck a shader on it that makes it look like there's these 3D rooms that you can look inside of. And that's cool. Like the shit you can do with shaders is magical. Alright, where am I meant to go? This isn't the same one from before, right? No, we've moved up since then. We've moved up in the world. Yeah, maybe now we want to go down? I don't think so, because it's a slope, right? This is just going to take us back where we came from, I think. Small group of folk that want games to be realistic. I hate that stuff. But to me, yeah, I agree. I think it's... those kind of illusions and stuff are really cool. Oh, I see. We didn't fall down... we didn't fall down exactly into the hole. So this one brought us... oh, not that. Brought us back somewhere different. I see. Oh, there's a nightmare. E-Tech. Okay, I can't shoot this from here. There was a Doom level that someone made, which I highly recommend watching. I can post a link in Discord actually for a really good breakdown about it. You may have already seen it. There was like a Doom level someone made called, I think it was just called My House, and it's like kind of based on House of Leaves. And it's, wait, is this, how are we? What? Now I'm confused. Is there a way up this that I just didn't notice? Oh, I see. I needed to do that, then come back here, and then I get trapped. Great. Progress. I was actually explaining my stream earlier. We designed the area in the park to feel different depending on where in the map you were. Ultimately, the park from larger. Yeah, I remember you explaining that to people yesterday as well when you were making stuff. Games are an illusion. I'll find a video for after this. You know about illusions because you've been pretending to exist for so long. Oh. Whoa. Oh god, these guys have... Are we going to get the plasma beam now? Because we can't shoot out of this. Adam, give me the beam. You son of a bitch.
Samus, you need a permeating shot effect to get past this. I'm authorizing you to unlock your wave beam.
Thank you. It's easy when you're encrypted. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if she's not smart enough to figure out how to deal with this without her weapons, I guess I'll let her use her weapons. She is only a woman after all. Ugh. Not a man like me, Adam. Excuse me while I go back to listening to Joe Rogan. I assume that's what he's doing this whole time. Famously man Adam. We still can't get up here. Wait, where are we meant to go then? Now I'm confused. Goes headphones on, laughing at it. Yep. There's an item over here. Oh, it's literally just here. I'll find that video about the Doom WOD though, because it's like a... So this guy made a horror level called My House. That's a Doom level that like rearranges itself as you play. And it's really cool. And there's a really good video about it. Oh my god. Let me do the thing. The video about it is very spoilery though, like he does go through exactly how it works. But, I mean, that's cool in itself. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh god. Honestly, early 3D on 3D systems. Like, have you ever seen the Sega Saturn version of Tomb Raider with all the texture coordinates turned off? Like, it's such a specific thing, but it's a good way of showing like how the Sega Saturn rendered 3D games. Oh my god. Oh my god, stop that. Let me see if I can find that actually. So like the way that... So the Sega Saturn famously was not built for 3D. Like the... Whatchamacallit? Like Sega built the Sega Saturn thinking, oh, 2D is the future. People, or 3D is like a fad. People are gonna want like really nice, big sprites, and they were right for me, but only for me. That's not true. Lots of people like sprites, but they were kind of wrong about the overall, direction of the industry. So 3D was famously very difficult to render on it. I'm blanking on what this video's called. So I don't know what it is. So it's this. So they kind of built this system that was really intended for like 2D stuff, and the way it mapped 3D was bizarre and difficult to get around. And it's also difficult to emulate, which is why emulators have been kind of busted for a while for it. I mean, they're really good now, apparently. Let me capture this. Window capture. Let's do this. Well, it's just this is just a Digital Foundry video because they did a nice little retrospective about Tomb Raider. Like this is, I don't have the sound on, but I think this is the Saturn version. So like it loads things in, and it's just loading in sprites. And it's similar to how games work now, like detail, stuff closer to you is higher detail than stuff further away, because that's what it, had the memory for. But they do a thing with this where they turn off texture coordinates, and it's like this is what it actually looks like if you don't like rotate the sprites that are making up the level. Which is kind of cool. Also, the Sega Saturn used quads instead of tries, so everything's squares, which, you know, is not that crazy, but I mean, if you come from most other game development backgrounds, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, it seems like it would be a nightmare. Can't imagine why people didn't make many games for it. It's pretty cool. Where are we meant to go? Oh, we want to go back. I just wasn't paying attention when he told me to fucking stop being here and go fight the big lizard man. I had that version of Tomb Raider as well. That was the version of Tomb Raider I played. The Saturn was a weird console. It was not a good console, but it was a cool console. It had a really cool music player in it. Wait, I still can't backtrack. How am I meant to get back that way? Think to shoot through something? Oh, there was a thing. I remember. Fuck, we need to go all the way back up to where we were. There was that charge thing that was through the window. We need to go back and hit that. That's an annoying bit of backtracking we need to do. My favorite early 3D quirk is the constant vertex calculations of the PS1 making everything bob. Yeah, the kind of like swimming texture stuff. Not every game had that because of like you could get around it, but you know that's like precious cycles you could be using for other things. So most people were just like, "Fuck it, that'll do." And yeah, it's kind of like an iconic looking effect now. Hey buddies, I'm not fighting you. Yeah. So I had to recalculate them every time because they weren't... Yeah. Makes sense. I did this last time as well, but I didn't need to go back in here. Let me through! Okay, this one's just permanent, I guess. Yeah, such a weird thing. It's kind of a miracle that any old games ever got made. Because... yeah. Not that there's not complicated things in modern games. Arguably, or not even arguably, just definitely way more complicated things in modern games. But... at least a lot of the hardware shit is kind of like figured out. Like Sony's not like, the PlayStation 5's out, figure out how to do 3D yourselves. Yeah, true. But things are made with duct tape now because games are like way bigger and have so much more going on. So it's less, oh, it's hard to get this working on this hardware, so we have to do weird shit. And it's more, oh, we have 40,000 systems, so yeah, of course one of them's gonna break. And when one breaks, everything breaks. Yeah, exactly. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit, I'm hitting everything. Speaking of Tomb Raider, this is... I had so little control over where she was moving. Yes, 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 let's go. Can't believe we didn't get like a super gory death scene like in Tomb Raider. Wait, is that? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's definitely a thing in the game industry at the moment where they're making big, expensive games and there's no additional time to make them, and like I know... Oh god, we died even faster that time. Yeah, if Adam granted me permission to use my snowboard. But we're in this weird situation where games are huge and super detailed and super expensive to make, and it costs lots of money because it takes hundreds of people to make them, and those hundreds of people are often very underpaid, but they also are on like a knife edge of what the fuck. There's like no speed. How's it going, Sai? Welcome in. Yeah, Crash bought a bunch of gift subs because he's great. Yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, they're, you know, kind of. It's like, man, I could be making games, but also kind of fuck that, honestly. What is with this fucking section? Jesus. Yeah, you definitely dodged a bullet. Like, there's good money in the games industry if you manage to, like, find a good place. But, I mean, there's lots of jobs that pay decently and have slightly better work environments. You can always make games in your spare time. Alright, we actually did it this time. Oh. I feel like... I was gonna say, I feel like my speed boost should come into effect, but it just did. I feel like if I was in it, I'd want to be in that successful indie bundle. Yeah, the indie bubble, like, kinda where you're making good and successful games, but not... You're not like... Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know how to describe it, but I know what you mean. So Devolver or something. Well, I don't know if I'd say Devolver right now. Devolver are kind of not having the best time of it at the moment. Not the worst time of it, but they're not. They've not been as successful as they'd hoped to be in the last couple of years. Oh god. Honestly, one of the indie devs I bet would be the most fun to work for at the moment is Hello Games. Because they don't seem to have, like... They seem to be smart enough that when No Man's Sky did really well, they didn't just do what a lot of devs do and, like, scaled up massively and kind of become a different thing, making more expensive big games. They were just like, nah, we're going to stay this size, that means we've got lots of money to keep just adding on to this game. Oh my god. Let me jump. And occasionally they, you know, ship other little things like the last campfire game they made. What the fuck is... What am I gonna do here? Oh, can I freeze it? I can freeze it. They learned a lesson about needing to take care of marketing and stuff. Yeah, Leader's a bit too excited about the game. speaking excitedly about stuff they want to do. Yeah, and this thing is like all of the stuff that he planned on doing is one, it's in the game now. But two, it was, you know, they were obviously planning on it. It just wasn't, they were never going to get it done in time. I do think that a lot of the reaction to that stuff was such a big overreaction too. Because like, No Man's Sky launch was still very good. Honestly, there was some stuff about No Man's Sky at launch that I prefer to the version we have now. Like, No Man's Sky was such a cool, weird, like, lonely exploration of space kind of experience. Whereas now it's very much filled with people asking you to do stuff. And directing you at missions and being like, you can become pirate if you want. You can build a town if you want. Do you want to build a base? And I'm like, no, I just kind of want to explore and scan plants for like a couple hours. And you can still do that, but the game is very much like trying to make sure you know there is shitloads of other things to do now because the game is so fleshed out. Okay, god damn it. Of course he went invincible the moment I started shooting. You! Stop that. You die as well. The environment really bad, and yeah. Yeah, same. Like, he was very clearly kind of thrust into a position he shouldn't have been in. But I mean, they were a small indie team that didn't have, you know, a PR team. The fact that, like, Sony was, you know, pushing that game and seemingly didn't, you know, have PR people there to be like, hey, like, here's what you should be saying. It's kind of wild to me.
Sequence complete. Process successful.
I think Nokia would be pretty cool to work with too. I don't know what Nokia is. I assume some kind of visual, from the name I assume some kind of visual programming thing. Wait, who's Glasgow based? Oh, Nokia is the name of the studio. Okay, I see. I see. I misread. That makes sense. The fun thing about this game is when I'm reading chat, I can just like run back and forth and keep jumping and then I'm fine. Occasionally shoot. The enemies die. I'm not looking at the screen, it's fine, I can read the chat. That is cool. Sorry, I saw you saying no code would be fun to work with, and I thought, oh, some kind of programming tool. They're doing Silent Hill. Is it actually called Townfall or is that a typo? Because Townfall's a good name if it's not. I'm excited for anything Silent Hill that isn't the one being made by fucking Liberty. Alright, that's a good name. So the name wasn't a typo, but type was a typo. Got it. But yeah, I'm not like a Silent Hill fan. Okay, I really need to shoot that guy while he's doing that. I'm not like a big Silent Hill fan. I think those games are good, but they're not really my kind of game. But man, I would have been so disappointed if I was like a big Silent Hill fan and after years of waiting for anything, the thing they announced was made by fucking Bloober Team. Like, their games are so fucking bad. Bill McKellen's studio head for No Code. He was previously quite deeply involved in Alien Isolation. Ah. Yeah, Alien Isolation's fantastic. Maybe... I was gonna say my favorite, but that's not true. It's one of my favorite horror games though, but it's really good. Weirdly good version of Alien Isolation is actually the Switch version. Like, they did a bizarrely good port of it for some reason. I don't know why I'm saying for some reason, but they did a really good port of it on the Switch. Okay. That thing's glowing, so I assume we have to do something with it. I always assume if something's glowing we have to do something, but it's not letting us scan it, which means we probably can't do anything with it. I see. Yeah, reception was kind of weird for it. Oh god. Aha. Yeah, I really liked Alien Isolation. The like one EGX I went to was the one before Alien Isolation came out. And they sat you in like a dark booth. I mean, you were in a booth with other people playing it, but they sat you in like a dark booth with like big headphones on, and it was terrifying. It was such a scary way to play that game. The first Evil Within was that EGX as well. That was a wild EGX. Dragon Age Inquisition was there, but it was only the multiplayer. Which was a choice. We've been this way? Oh, we're back here. We can go get this item. Let's go backtrack a bunch. Everyone loves backtracking, right? It's gonna be real funny why I still don't have anything to get this item. Oh yeah, I completely missed Brad's incredibly hot take there. Computer games being pretty nifty. I don't know, man. I don't know. Don't know if I can follow you down this path that you've chosen. Not while I'm playing other If I was playing something else, maybe I could agree with that. Oh my god, this is so far away. See, when we get all the way up here and it's going to be like, you need the grapple beam to get this, I'm going to be slightly miffed. Full of lightning hot material. This fucker. Wait, can we kill this guy now that we have the... Oh! Eat shit. Fucking finally. That's right, we need the diversity of opinion. Fuck that eye. Not literally. Yeah, Thought man, we've ran past that thing like 3 times and it just is a pain in the fucking ass. Do we need to jump? We do need to jump. I fucked it. Also, welcome in, Thong man. How's it going? How was, you were doing some GTA stuff, weren't you? heal. Fun fact, the original reason that I subscribed to, he's giving me permission to break physics by shooting through walls, that's accurate. One of the best GTA streams I can remember doing, so I'm buzzing. That sounds great. Fun fact, the reason that I first subscribed to Twitch Turbo instead of just like subscribing to people to get rid of ads on like specific streams was because I was watching like fucking, at one point I was watching like fucking 9 different GTA RP streams at the same time, and I was like, I can't afford to subscribe to everyone. Or like if interesting story stuff was happening on, this was like on, it wasn't, I forget what it was called. It was one of the like the big popular ones at the time. But like whenever like some big story beat was happening between multiple people, I was like, oh well, I need to go watch their stream as well, and I don't want ads there. So I needed no ads across the site rather than subscribing to like dozens of people just so that I could watch their stream for 5 minutes, and yeah, it was nonsense. Oh god. Oh god. Never played GTA 5 no longer. GTA 5 is alright. Oh god. They bought the, didn't they buy, whatchamacallit, the people that made the big, RP tools? Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. I did this so easily before. GTA 5 is an alright game, but I do think that GTA RP is like the best stuff that has come out of it. Like, it's way more interesting than anything that's in the base game. That's fair. Yeah, I think it is very cool they bought the RP stuff. I mean, you know, big companies buying small companies is less cool in a lot of ways, but if they were going to buy anyone, that it kind of, oh god damn it, this asshole. See, this is why I wanted rid of these guys. It kind of goes to show that they know what people want. Like, I'm surprised that they didn't try to either buy or shut them down way earlier, because GTRP is like very popular just now, but it was even more popular like during the pandemic. Like, it was huge. Like the no clip stuff in particular was, not no clip, isn't it? Fuck, what's the name of the big one? No clip's not. What was I thinking of? No Pixel, that's right. Yeah, the No Pixels, No Clip is the documentary series that Daniel Dwyer does. Yeah, I used to watch a lot of No Pixel stuff. But No Pixel like is very big just now, but it was so huge during the pandemic. And I'm kind of surprised that Rockstar didn't try to either, I mean, they wouldn't surprise me if they tried to shut it down, but I'm surprised they didn't try to shut it down or buy it during that, because it's like, that would be the time to get on board. But I mean, it was probably cheaper to buy that stuff now. Oh, I need to... Got a 12 win streak, Jesus. I find that the control's fine. I really don't like needing to switch between the like third person and first person, where I have to like switch to use the pointer. Like, this is not, it doesn't feel good. But like the core like walking around stuff, even though it's a D-pad, this feels fine. Like, this is, if the whole game was just this, I would actually rate this game way higher. Oh, nice plans coming together. I've never participated in GTRP, I just watched a ton of it. I watched it obsessively. Yeah, I'll need to try to watch that finale too. Oh. Next room. Well, after this corridor. And then we need to backtrack all the way back. We need to backtrack back from our backtracking. I swear to God, see when we get into here and it's like, hey, you need the grapple beam. Now loading. Even the game's like, why did you come back here? We did not have this stored in memory. Why would we? You've been here. You motherfucker. How are we meant to get there? How are we meant to get there? I think we legit don't have what we need. Oh wait, can we boost? Nope. No, there's not enough space to speed boost. Am I missing something? It doesn't look like there's anything. Oh, this might just be like a screw attack thing. Yeah, Adam, give me the screw attack. I know we're not far enough in the game yet, but like I really want this missile pickup. I came all this way. Please. Oh wait, what's this? Normal missile, let's go shoot that. Maybe we can climb boxes. There's something to shoot, we're gonna shoot it. Yeah, there might be it might be like the end of an area. Maybe we have to climb up these boxes to get somewhere. Oh wait, that's just these. What are these things? I'm gonna blow them up anyway, but I don't know what they are. Oh, they were blocking me from finding another item. That's weird. How have I not collected 4 of those by now? Oh wait, I did. Wait, can I just jump? Nope. That's close though. It does look like this little area, but where would it be? Usually they kind of telegraph it a bit more. This game's not really about being subtle. Oh jeez. I don't want to go down there because I don't think we can get back up. I don't see anything. Yeah, we might just need to come back again later. We did at least get some kind of item. It wasn't the one we came for, but I mean, better than nothing. This doesn't look that far. That looks like it should be jumpable. Also, it's a weird angle where... How would I jump it? Yeah, like it's too far to speed boost. We only get here before it speed boosts. We're close though, like you can hear the thing start. Think we came all this way for nothing. Oh god. Take it we can't just like wall jump off these. They won't even let me wall jump off that one. Why can I wall jump off some of these but not all of them? Bizarre. I guess because they specifically don't want me wall jumping up to get this item. It's weird though, because I don't know if the gravity jump, or not the gravity jump, the screw attack's in this. I think it is. I mean, we shouldn't really waste any more time on this. It's just a fucking missile. Okay. Let's see if we can see anything though. Off the bed. Good night, Brad. It's a good choice. It's fucking late. Way too late. Have a good sleep. It doesn't look like there's a tunnel behind it. It looks like it's just a wall. Alright, I'm gonna give up on this. We're not 100% in it. I'm sorry guys. The dream's over. I know everyone was expecting this to be a 100% run, but it's not happening. We'll come back at the end of the game and get it. But hey, we got an energy pickup. That's actually way more useful than fucking missiles. Missile pickups are kind of like the most useless pickup in this game. For people that don't know why missiles are kind of most useless pickup in this game, it's because at any point you can just do this and you recharge your missiles. So it kind of doesn't matter if you have 30 of them or 10 of them, because you can just reload them. So whatever. Nailed it. God damn it. You fuckers being nailed. Alright, we have to do this whole bit again. Nope. 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 No percent I'm out of here. Feeling cheated. Understandable. I feel cheated too. I kind of want to look up speedruns of this game. I feel like once you know the movement tech, it must be kind of cool. Oh jeez. And I bet they skip a bunch of stuff. Like the story. Which would make this game 100 times better. Oh, we have to take a lift again. Please don't respawn enemies. Please just take me up. I know these kind of like freight lifts are like a real thing, but I just think of Metal Gear every time I see one in a video game. Two hours to speedrun. That's fast. Speedrun, seeing how fast you can get the shop to accept the return. Probably not anymore. Very difficult to do these days. It's a 10-hour 43-minute speedrun. We're too slow even for that, I'm afraid. $10 43 is pretty funny for a speedrun though. Like in general, but even in the context of this, I'm pretty sure that's like, you know, not far off like the normal like length of this game. But then I don't really remember how long this game is. This is a cool looking sequence. I do like this area. I wonder if they do anything else with this bit. Because it seems kind of elaborate to have this kind of outside space area just for one one little thing. Walk.
This elevator is bound for the main sector.
You know the one thing I don't really like about this game? Like the only thing I don't really like about this game, because obviously I love every other part of it, is that because you use the D-pad to move, you can't really do the like spin the analog stick and make the character spin thing that I like doing when I play it. You might have noticed this if you've watched me stream other things. But when I stream games, usually when I'm like killing time, I will just sit and spin the analog stick so my character spins. D-pad is way harder to do this, and kind of hurts my finger. It's the one thing. Everything else about this game is perfect though. I like to make characters sick. Yeah, I played Metal Gear Solid 3 a bunch, you know? Oh, my friend and I used to have this thing where we played Dragon Ball Xenoverse 1 together, and eventually 2. But in the lobbies for that game, there's just like a kind of tiled floor, and it's just like a grid. And whenever we were just sitting, by the end of the night, after we'd done a few missions, stuff like that, we would usually just sit and chat on voice chat. But the whole time, both of us would just be sitting, jumping, like from square to square on the grid, trying not to touch the edges like you're a fucking child. And we would just sit and do that in Dragon Ball, and we never like talked about it, or like we played that game for like weeks and if not months together before one of us was like, wait a minute, you're doing that as well? Wait a minute. Is this the thing you do? I wasn't paying attention to what the lady said, but I can't go through the door, so she was probably saying don't go through the door. But I was telling you all my fun jumping story instead, so I never heard it. This isn't on. Ah! Right. Oh, it's this area. I remember this area. Or is this a new area that just looks like the other area? Might just be. I'll check the map in a second. No, we've been here before. So wait, we want to go there, but the thing's not on yet. Well, let's go this way and see if we get these items first, at least. Because we missed a bunch of items in here we weren't here before. Eat shit. Where does this go? Oh yeah. Oh. This game's all about making sure that you can't use the speed booster that it gave you. Oh, we could do that with it though. That gives me some semblance of belief that we were meant to be going this way. Ugh, I'm not gonna fight you guys. Oh, this motherfucker. I killed you. Come on, punch me. Show me that belly. Show me that belly. I'm not gonna say it every time. Oh, jeez. Oh, I killed it. I killed it off screen. Can I use this computer now? Yay! We opened the door. There's also an item in here. Where is it? Oh, is it under the... Ah. How did we miss this last time? I mean, I know the answer to that. The answer to that is because it was like 1 AM on Monday night. Hmm. How did I get up there? How did I get up there? Because there's definitely one other item, and it's here-ish. Maybe there is a higher jump at some point. Because this isn't long enough to do the speed boost. Ugh, it's almost close. You just keep going. Alright, I need you fuckers to move out of the way because I need to run. Please leave me alone. I'm going jogging. Alright, let's backtrack from our backtracking. I can't even really be too critical about the backtrack in this game because it's kind of like a Metroid staple, you know? That's not a, this is a bad Metroid game, that's just a thing that Metroid games do, and it's usually fun. I'm not opposed to backtracking the way some people are. Like if a level is well designed, I don't mind jumping through it again to get something different that I missed before. God damn it. God damn it. Yeah, one of my biggest complaints about this game is still just the killing enemies is pointless. Because you don't get anything from it. So why would I bother killing them? Makes more sense just to run past everything. Oh shit. Not Anthony. He's my favorite one. Oh. Did I fuck up? What am I meant to do? I don't have a grapple beam. Give me the grapple beam, Adam. This was a bad idea. I thought I could get over here and then wall jump, but no, it will not let me do that. Oh wait, I just need to shoot? That might be actually smarter. I'm down here, I'll catch him, it's fine. It wasn't even Deleter this time. Maybe it is, maybe this is what Deleter looks like under his armor. He's a big bug man. Maybe Anthony's the Deleter and this is the good guy. Can I just shoot it? Oh, I had to scan the grapple beam so that it would give me the grapple beam. Fuck. This game, eh?
Get to Anthony and cover it.
Remember him? I do remember him. Stop doing that. Oh, I should have used the missile now. Switching between the missiles is so much slower than just using... Oh, fuck, this thing has missiles as well? What doesn't it have? Do the thing. Oh. Well, obviously it just killed itself. But great, I have the grapple beam now, because I needed it to save Anthony.
Whew. That was ugly. Thanks, Princess. So, you get called out here too?
Called?
Commander gave us a new directive to move as a unit. Our gather point was a navigation booth near here, but when no one showed, I figured I'd just take a look around. That's when I got jumped by those things you just saw.
What was your unit directive? I'm tracking that monster.
We were heading to the geothermal power plant to
Oh,
open
that
the
monster
magnet
is the
eruption.
same lizard thing that we fought before.
Gotta
It's
restore
just
the power
changed
in this
again.
place, so I can see that pretty face of
I
yours.
messed up.
Yeah, it seemed a little excessive to send the whole unit to do it, but he's the commander. He must have had a reason.
Is Adam the traitor? Is he trying to get everyone killed?
So Samus, how you feeling about the commander, huh?
Flashback time.
Remember me?
Ian has arrived at the drive unit.
Ian, be careful out there. I know this is a routine fix, but don't let your guard down.
Don't
there
let
are
your guard
300
down.
people on board. Their lives are in your hands.
Roger that.
Instantly
The
fucked
drive
it.
unit's going critical.
The unit is overheating beyond our estimates, sir. Commander
We can
Malkovich,
totally catch
unit
this, yes.
meltdown imminent. It's good.
That's not happened yet. This is before that.
Prepare to disengage the drive unit immediately.
But Ian's still inside.
Adam, I can reach him.
That wasn't even the actual Adam. The actual Adam was
Lock
dead
and
by then.
secure the shielding doors now.
Adam, wait! There's still time. I can make it. Please let me go. I mean, that's Ian. That's your little brother out there.
Oh shit, this is brother.
Adam, please let me go. You have to trust me. Just give me a chance.
Commence drive unit disposal immediately. That's an order.
Adam was right. If we had waited any longer, it would have meant the end of those we had come to rescue, and the end of us as well. I knew
Damn.
that, but
Fan favorite Ian died that day.
At the very least, you wouldn't be standing here now. That's what the commander was most scared of.
I
One
was
brain cell,
childish.
Sai. One brain cell.
No one should have to make the choice that Adam did.
Add
And
Ian
yet
to
all I could
Smash.
do was question his authority and
Ian
make
is the
things
other
more
M, it's
difficult.
true.
Hey, you were just a pup then, and the commander knows it. Look, forget it. Sorry for hitting a nerve. We better get going anyhow. Man, if something like that happened now? Huh. Best just forget about it. I'm out.
Bye.
I knew the question Anthony was suppressing, and I knew the answer. If something like that happened again, I would hold fast to that glimmer of hope and try for redemption. That's who I am.
Alright. Well, we've learned a lot about Samus as a character here. Can we can get this item now, right? Wait, what? It's like in this corner. Oh, I know what we need to do. I know what we need to do. We need to go here and do it from this direction. Right? Is that right? No, it doesn't let us do that. What the fuck? Oh my god. How did that even happen? Other motherfucker we abandoned. Yeah, I don't know when we can unlearn that. Alright, we survived. So there's an item like over there. So I thought we had to grapple across to like here somewhere. But it doesn't look like it. Maybe we just have to wait until we get the power bomb. I can't even see where the item is. Like it's in the corner. Like there. I don't see it. So maybe it's under something. Yeah, I don't know. Items, eh? Tough. There is also like a super missile door here. I think this is gonna be like a completely different area, but we'll see. There's a big guy here. There's two big guys here. But more importantly, there's help. Oh shit, it's one of these guys. Doshin the Giant. But hey, we can do this now. We couldn't last time we were in this area. And again, there's an item like here. It's in the lava? I don't want to go in the lava though. Yeah, it's hot and scary. Oh god. Strange. Oh. There's like a path under there. But how do we get to that? There's a gap there. There's also these, but I don't know. Fuck it, let's die. Oh jeez. Oh jeez. Oh jeez. Also, for reference, the reason that I grappled back and then did this all the way from there is it wouldn't let me jump off this ledge here. What the fuck? Okay, let me that time. But yeah, when I was doing it before, when I was running up here, it was like weird, just let me know. Well, I don't know. I'm fairly sure you're supposed to avoid lava. Thank you for the tip, Cashy. You're probably right. Right, this door's locked. Let's jump in this hole. That looks like a grapple hook to me. Wait, this is probably the actual way forward, isn't it? This isn't what I wanted. but we're stuck here now. What? Oh, are we unlocking grappling points to come back here later? Not that one though. Fuck that one. This one will be fine though. And so will this one. And this one. My babies. Need a gravity suit to walk through lava, but I do not feel like giving it to you yet. Yep. Open the doors. Okay, so I couldn't have came this way before anyway. Alright, let's get eaten by this thing. I guess we're about overdue a boss fight. That looks like a grappling hook point to me because it's the kind of bluish green that the grappling points are. That's how you design a game. Open your mouth again. Oh, I keep... We got the grapple, we're fishing now. Open your mouth. Please. Oh, he did it, and again I was... It's kind of fun at least that they don't lock you into the specific way of killing it, because if you shoot it in the mouth instead of using the grappling hook, you still get to like do damage to it because it exposes its belly. You do less damage. Okay, this whole switching into first person thing to do stuff in the middle of a boss fight sucks. You done now? Oh my god. Quit it. Yeah, I'm done grappling with you. I'm not falling for that shit again. Screw you, I'm going over here now. Let's reload my missiles. Which is a thing you can do. Sometimes it just shoots missiles even though I'm trying to use the grapple beam on it. Like, it's the same button, I don't have any choice over that. It's just how it works. Wakey, wakey. Hey, buddy. Eat shit. Oh, he doesn't have the grapple point anymore. Whatever will I do? I've been using that so much. Oh, what the fuck? That was kind of fucked. But hey, we did way more damage. Let's see. Every time I make a mistake at work, I'm working from home, I sing the High School Musical line. Because it starts with, "This is not what I wanted." That's pretty good. It's like good command on your stream. Yes. Woke up early on my first day off, not cool. This is not what I wanted. I didn't ask for this. I slept in this morning, but not in a fun, got extra sleep because of fun stuff way. But I just got a new iPhone, and for some reason, the alarm didn't go off. Probably my fault for not checking that I'd set the alarms up properly, because I kind of thought, alright, they'll transfer over from my old phone. And no, I mean they transferred over, but they didn't work. I had to like turn them off and on. It was silly. Yeah, I blame Apple for it. So I thankfully only slept in like half an hour, 45 minutes. Like I wasn't that late up.
Samus, it looks like that monster is headed to the geothermal electric power generator. Track it.
I've taken 0 sick days since I started this job. I started this job in January? I've not taken a single sick day. I've not taken as much of my holiday times as I should have either. I'm taking Monday off though. I might stream more on Monday because, you know, I have a day off. So I might just stream some stuff. Maybe we'll sit and just play through like all of Oracle of Ages. Just get it done. I slept through 2 stand-ins last month alone. I've taken less sick days this year and I had a holiday, I think. Or because I had a holiday, I think. I had to pretend I was too sick to take the call and let everyone know. Yeah, that's fair. Holidays are good for you. I don't have the issue with sleeping through stand-ups because most of the people I work with are Americans, so our stand-ups are like 4 PM our time. Because that's like the start of their day. I would need to like really sleep in. I would be really fucked if I like if I slept through my stand-up. I don't know why I'm killing this thing, but I did. Oh, I know why. I need to kill the enemies in the area so I can see if there's items. There's more enemies somewhere. I hit the ceiling. Hey, buddy. Don't do that. Guess there's no items in here. Let's see. Standards was 9.15. Yeah, mine used to be when I worked with a Scottish company. Who says to me for 9.15? That's the nature of stand-ups. The earlier you stand up, take 30 seconds to explain your task. Yeah. Cuts down on meetings. I think 99% of the time stand-ups are useless, but they're still worth having because having that set, you know, ideally 5-10 minutes is good so that the, like, you know, 5% of times someone actually does need to say, hey, I'm blocked on a task, what do I do next, or what, you know, can someone help unblock me, and this kind of thing is very useful. Just having that time there to specify it. Yeah, when you have lots of interdependencies. Definitely. Alright, we're gonna turn that off at some point. Can we shoot this? Yes. Then you shoot it again. I see them being used for that. Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, mine mostly aren't that useful because, yeah, I'm kinda like, most of the time, the only person doing iOS. But I do hit occasionally things that's like, hey, I can't progress on this unless I have more, you know, feedback from this, or the back end for this doesn't work, or, you know, I need this code reviewed. We'll have to turn this thing around again, won't we? This crane. I know some people at companies that have like got away from doing stand-ups, or doing them like entirely on Slack. Plus, as we don't need many meetings around our work. Yeah, true. Is this right? This looks close. I'm a genius puzzle solver. This reminds me of a puzzle. Man, you know what I'm really looking forward to? A new Professor Layton game. I hope it's good. I'm kinda in the mood for Professor Layton game. I know it's not coming out anytime soon, but you know, I'll still be ready for a new Professor Layton game when it comes out. I've been thinking about replaying the Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright game because it is probably my favourite of either of those series. Also, sorry, I'm backtracking to make sure I didn't miss any enemies because I want to be able to see items. I've learned there is in fact a good reason to kill enemies, and it's because the first time you go into a room, if you kill all the enemies, it shows you if there's any hidden items in it. So there is one reason to kill enemies. You get off the fucking wall. Wait, where the fuck is it? Get down. These weird fire coughings too. Our boss tends to take them for us since he's up to date. Yeah, it's fair. This is why I don't want to be a boss. Too many meetings. Yeah, I agree. I feel like this kind of the thing for most companies when it comes to software developers is the career progression that you're kind of funneled into is you write a bunch of code, you write a bunch of code better and also mentor people, and then you become a manager. And it's like, I don't want to do that last step, thank you. I'm good. Thankfully, I think a lot of tech companies are getting better about that though. Where they'll have more routes that involve just like writing code and architecting stuff. You know, you can become like a staff engineer or whatever fucking people call it. I don't know, all the names for that stuff's silly. Why did I do that? Solutions architect, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Also, what's wrong with just liking your job? That's true. Like, just, it's okay to just do a thing. I don't need to be progressing at all times. I'm good with just writing code. You know? I'm pretty decent at it. Not great at it, but I'm pretty decent at it. I'd like to just write code and get paid a decent amount for it. Is that so much to ask? Also, I'm pretty sure I just noticed the... Okay, no. I thought I saw a hole that we could, like, morph ball through. That's why I jumped back on this. But it has, like, kind of grating on it. This door's not even open! God damn it. I'm an idiot. Wasted all that time. This one though, this is the spinning pillar that's going to take us where we want to go. Yeah, I think pretty decent's good. I agree. You know, lots of people write iOS code that is not pretty decent. Like whoever, okay, I says mean. I was going to say whoever wrote the app that I'm working on before, but that's not actually true. The code that they wrote was pretty decent. It's just old. It's very old. Which I'm okay with. A lot of my job right now is like reworking stuff that was written by someone a while ago, and it's fun. Yeah, gives you something to learn. If you're perfect at stuff, you're not learning nothing, right? I really need to get back to making personal projects though. I'm so bad about making personal projects. I started work on a thing at the start of the year. Kinda end of last year. No, that's not true. It was like a few months of this year. Where I wanted to make an iPad app using, like I wanted to write it on the iPad. Because there's kind of tools available for it, but not really. You're not really meant to do it. But I thought it'd be a fun little project. And the thing I started working on was a little app that was just kind of like, if you've ever used the website Backlogged, it lets you make like lists of backlogs of games and stuff. But Discord I'm on uses them for making Game of the Year lists at the end of the year. Just everyone will just make a little list of, you know, their Game of the Year stuff and take a screenshot and share it. What did I miss here? Like, that's a grab thing, so we must need to get on top of this. Did I miss some? Oh, do you know what I missed? This. I missed that I can just fucking run. Yeah, Backlog's cool. So I thought I'll make a little iOS app, because they don't have an iOS app for Backlogged. They don't have an API either, so I realized I'm just making something that looks kind of similar to it, that does a similar thing. It won't have access to the backlogged lists or anything. But it was just a fun little project to learn myself. Oh my god, I need to go the other way. I need that missile pickup. And I'm writing it on an iPad to run on iPads and iPhones. But just doing it all on the iPad is a fun learning experience. And I stopped at one point and I really need to get back to it. Because I wanted literally the core concept I came up with was I want to be able to make a list like I'm backlogged of games that I like my Game of the Year list or whatever, and then export a screenshot of it. Like that's it. Just I don't want to have to take a screenshot or adjust window sizes so that all of the games in the list show up. I wanted to just fucking generate a screenshot and render the whole fucking thing in an image. And I hit a point where I realized that Swift UI, which is Apple's kind of newer UI framework that's kind of simplified in a lot of ways, and also, to be less kind to it than simplified, I would say unfinished. Has a really neat little thing that lets you render images from like a screen really easily. Like it takes like fucking 3 lines of code, but it doesn't work properly with images that are loaded from the internet, so I need to fix it. But I got to that point and I was like, ugh, I need to actually put effort into this, and I stopped. But ideally I'd get it done before the end of the year when, you know, people are doing Game of the Year lists. Game of the Year Sonic art? Yeah, definitely. Oh, I fucked this up. I fucked this up. Why won't you lock on? Playing on my 3DS, so I'm checking my frequently. Yeah, what are you playing? What 3DS game are you playing? Are you playing the hit Monster Hunter like game Final Fantasy Explorer? Might and Magic Clash of Heroes? I never played that. Oh god. If I had an easy way to stream 3DS games other than emulating them, I would stream Final Fantasy Explorers. Because that game's not great, but I played a lot of it. It'd be fun to show it off. Which I know no one brought it up, but someone mentioned 3DS, and that's the first 3DS game that jumps into my head, rather than any of the big popular ones. Bye. This guy just fucking off? Okay. Alright, well he's out. I'd never touched a Might and Magic game, but a podcast spoke this up. Yeah, I remember people saying that 3DS one was good. I've played like one Might and Magic game, but I don't remember which one it was. It may be one of the spin-offs actually, because there's like a ton of them. Oh, nice. If I remember, there was a guy I went to uni with that was like super into these games. Hey buddy, how's that working out for you? Okay, there's still enemies in here. Let's jump in this hole. Oh god, these guys. Oh no, there's two of them. I'm trying to think who it was. Stu Crash. I'm pretty sure Stu was into them. I could be wrong. I may be misremembering. But I think he was. I don't think there's anything in this room, but it says there's an item. Can I go on this? Okay, that would be silly. So we have to grapple across there, I guess, but I'm confused. Oh god, maybe these giants would have like thrown fire at me if I just tried to grapple without killing them first? I remember my magic stuff being kind of, it's not like kind of like a mix of like strategy and RPGs. Can I drop from here? No. That's not how this works. Well, we're not getting that item. We'll come back later. We will probably not come back later. This game is filled with corridors that are just long enough to get your speed boost almost started. Oh hey, we're back here. I remember this place. Oh god. There's an item in here, but there's also a super missile thing in here, so that's probably where it is. Although there is also a grapple thing down here. Oh, it wasn't a grapple thing. Hmm. Just lava. Maybe the screw attack is in this game. Because that seems like a thing you'd screw attack across. Hey buddies. Why don't you all fuck off? Because they're just fucking off. Adaptation, I've got a flashing power light. Yeah, that's hard mode engaged. Trying to work out which birthday, knowing Melbourne will be warm during the day and then drop suddenly at night. That sounds about right. It says no rain, but I trust I never trust forecast, but I mean, I live in Scotland. I don't know about where you are, but in Scotland, the forecast is accurate for some part of the day. But the weather changes so much. And also it's kind of just safe to assume that it's always going to rain. Oh yeah, there's the grapple thing over here. It is very way over there. Over here? Over here. Sorry, I wasn't standing quite close enough for the grapple beam to activate. I really wish I didn't need a first person to do these. But I mean, as always, I would just wish I didn't need to go into first person in this game. Right, we'll go to the next... Oh my god, these fuckers. Oh, but there might be an item in here. I need to kill these guys, see if there's any items. Get back out of the lava so I can murder you. We'll get to the next navigation room or like story beat or something. This game seems okay with like saving. And then we'll finish up. This game pretty late. Won the fight and saved before the battery died. That's pro gaming. That one didn't look like it was dead. Okay, it's not dead. Thanks for proving my point, weird giant man. Oh jeez. Come on. Alright, I think he's dead. Everyone's dead. There's no items in this room. That was a waste of time. But there's a save point here. We'll take a sneak peek into the next room. Oh, I still got this here actually. This is what I think those guys look like. This is what those lava dudes remind me of. Right? Do other people see it? Oh, they then respawn. Alright, well this... I think that's what they look like. He's the... I mean, less happy than Doshin is. You've never seen that game before. It's a GameCube game. I've never played it. But people that like it really like it. It's like a fun novelty, I think. Oh. 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 Lizard Man evolved again. But I mean, surely we knew that, right? Surely the big flying eyeball thing we've been shooting was it. Oh, jeez. Again, an area that has enough space for you to just about get the speed up to do the speed booster and then makes you stop. It always bodes well when they just give you an energy, like a fucking health upgrade. That's a good sign. Alright, maybe let's do this because I think we're about to hit a big boss fight. I was going to go off because I just realized, because I looked down and I was like, oh, I've only been streaming for 2 hours. Then I remembered that like I got disconnected like 2 hours in. So we've been streaming for like 4 hours. But I think this is the guy. If I remember right, Chronicle, I don't know if Chronicle remembered this or knew this already, but Chronicle called this in the first stream of this game. The big cartoony purple lizard we were fighting before was Ridley. Oh wait, maybe it's not here.
Get out the way.
Oh no, it is. Here we go. The timer says 2 hours. Well, I got disconnected because my internet cut out. We've been playing this game for 3 hours. I know that because I also started recording when I switched to this game, so I've been recording for 3 hours. Oh my god, why are you making me do a pixel hunt thing now? Oh shit, it's Anthony. Oh my god, what am I meant to be scanning? There's a giant flying lizard man. Why don't I scan that? I hate these sequences so much. I don't think I know what that is, Crash. Where's Ridley? I'm pixel hunting. And I hate it. Stop making me scan Anthony. I genuinely don't know what I'm meant to be scanning here. Yeah, Ridley fucked off the Smash. He's like, I got that invite. Ridley's a really fun character in Smash. Very good addition, especially after years of the jokes of they can't put Ridley in the game, he's too big. And eventually Sakurai was like, fuck it, he's in. I'm still very happy they added Sora. What am I scanning? What? Really? The fucking door. I probably watched it at the time, I just don't remember.
Duh. This ain't good.
Samus should have spent less time looking around and more time looking inside herself. This game is kind of a lot of her looking inside herself, to be fair.
Don't waste your plasma.
Not a Smash guy, but I'd still love to kill Sora with Shulk. That's fair, you can do that in that game. Oh god. I need to try and shoot him with myself, because it seems like I don't have a chance.
Samus, blast the eruption port to get the magma flowing.
Oh my god, let me get out of this fucking mode. What's the eruption port? Not above us. It's not this thing. Oh my god, I'm stuck in first person mode though. Is this wall?
Use your super missiles.
Oh my god, this fucking game. See, even if like the game gave you the abilities like early on, like before you need them, just so you have them, it would make moments like this a bit better. But the fact that it's like, I don't know what I'm meant to be doing, and then eventually the game's like, oh, it's because you don't have the weapon yet. It's like, why would you do it this way? And now we get to see her traumatized about this monster she's killed multiple times before.
Samus, do you copy? Samus!
Of all of the like bad story beats in this game, this is my least favorite. Yeah, she's just like, man, Ridley's looking great. I still love that when they designed the Space Pirate, Ridley's really going for it. Yeah. This is like the leader of the Space Pirates. This big dragon man. But yeah, I dislike all of the you know, the Adam daddy issues stuff, but this bit is definitely the bit that always stood out to me the most of like, this is Samus. She has killed Ridley multiple times at this point. Yes, she still might be kind of shocked that, you know, she's seeing him again. But this is not like a character beat that was ever even hinted at in previous games. Or the, like, other expanded kind of lore about her. Yeah, thank God Samus is a man to save her from Ridley. But also, like, showing, like, her as a child, they probably were like, ah, this is really good. We've got, you know, okay, we've got the plasma beam finally. They're like, oh, you know, we're showing because, you know, he killed her parents and she is the reason that she's an orphan. And it's like, no, you're literally, like, infantilizing your female protagonist. Like, you literally are turning into a child. Like, what the fuck? The music's good, though. Listen to this. I really probably should have ran up and got, like, the fancy animation, but this probably does more damage, honestly. And the thing is, like, this boss fight's alright. It's just the set. Like, most things in this game, the actual gameplay portions of it, pretty good. Setup for it, bad. Okay, why are these all glowy? I can't seem to show them. Can I super missile? That's what I need to do. So if he's glowy, I need to use super missiles. I forgot I had them because the only thing I've had to use them for so far is blowing up a wall. Which actually, when you think about it, is kind of crazy. They gave me 2 weapon upgrades to fight Ridley. And they made me use them both in this fight, even though I've already forgotten one of them. God damn it. Oh my god. Jump. And again, this boss is fun. Like, they nailed the gameplay part. Well, not nailed, but they did a good job with the gameplay part. Like, this is a fun kind of, you know, character action, almost kind of stylish action take on a Metroid boss fight. And we fucked him up. I do also like how, like, bright purple he is, which doesn't really fit in with the aesthetic of the rest of this game, but is what Ridley looks like. It's such shallow storytelling. Yep. It's only alright because Anthony weakened for you. Yep. You'd never win otherwise. Honestly, this game's story for Samus is just so weird. We discuss it every time, but I still can't wrap my head around decisions here. If you ask me to imagine a characterization of Samus, this would be far from it. Yeah, I agree. You got the plasma beam, I'd overcome trauma upgrade. I got them. And again, like, the action parts of these cutscenes, that shit was all really cool right there. If they just stuck to that. Didn't try to do the weird character beats.
Conscious as he hit bottom. Unbearable thoughts welled up in me.
As he hit
making
bottom?
me want to get as far away as I could.
What's Anthony up to?
Not being able to protect him. And I regretted thinking, even for a moment.
I was getting spam calls pretty frequently as well recently, Akashi. They just kind of stopped.
Failed to come to my aid at the expense of his own safety.
It's annoying. Anthony can't be the traitor. He helped us. He's a good boy. Maybe a dead boy, but you know, a good boy. I'm sure we'll never see him again. Wait, was this the way I was meant to go? That arena was literally just for the fight? Well, we can go through here now, though. Oh, that's just, it just brought us back here. This is the one that was here at before, right? Like, this is already done. Oh no, it's not. This is just another very similar looking room. Damn near identical room, actually. Oh, it's just lava at the bottom. Fun. That's the fun difference. To be fair though, incredibly samey looking vertical rooms is incredibly Metroid. It is in fact the most traditional. Oh my god, I need to. Is the most traditional of Metroid that this game has been. Stop. 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 Who designed this room? Alright, let's see where this takes us. Somewhere far away. Oh god. Oh, it was this one we found before that was off. That's neat. So now we have this beam that does way more damage and shoots through multiple enemies. And we have super missiles, which we can use to get more upgrades and stuff. I'm gonna... I do love when Metroid becomes a ball. Who doesn't? On the Nintendo DS demo I had, I remember doing a lot of zooming around as a ball. Yeah, that's fair. More games should let protagonists become a ball. Yeah, I mean, it's great in all of the games that do it, and all the games that do it are great. Like Metroid, Sonic, all of them. They're all great. So we still can't do anything here. I'm going to quickly run through these other rooms again just to see if we can get any items, and then I'll hit the near save. Oh, we can go through here now. I say I'm just going to backtrack through stuff and then instantly I'm like, oh, new room. Oh, motherfucker, so that unlocks the item. This fucking game. This fucking game. Give me this fucking item. I've waited so long. Yeah, but imagine, like, you know, we are all whatever ages we all are. I'm sure some of you at least have started getting to the point where maybe your back hurts sometimes. You know? You've been sitting the wrong way for too long, etc, etc. Now imagine if you rolled into a ball for a while. That sounds like it's only going to exacerbate things. Maybe when you're like in your teens or early 20s, that's when you really want the being able to morph into a ball power. Once you hit your 30s, being able to morph into a ball is exactly, you don't want to be a ball for too long. It's gonna fuck your spine up. It sounds better than it is, you know? I fucked my back yesterday just being on the bus for too long. Oh, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to laugh at that, but yeah. I'm actually, my back's actually fine. That's not to gloat, not to boast, but I've inexplicably almost hit 32 and my back feels fucking fine. Honestly, it never hurts. I'm good. I could probably roll into a ball if I wanted to. I'm not gonna. Because I don't need to show off, you know? Make everyone look bad. Good back breaks. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I'll wake up weird tomorrow and just be like, I actually weirdly
Something was gnawing at me.
in uni and high school I used to wake up and have like a kind of fucked up neck quite a lot.
From the
Like I would just like pull something in my sleep and wake up and have a stiff neck. I've not done that in years now. So actually my body's getting better over time. I'm improving.
He wouldn't go down easily. And Adam would already know about the deleter. So there's no way he would let his guard down. If that was the case, then why couldn't I reach him?
I still can't believe she called the fucking bad guy the deleter.
Situation?
She should have called him something smarter, like Killer Man.
My racing thoughts started to frustrate me.
Is the bad guy Matt Hardy? That's it. The most broken of broken Matt Hardys. Delete, delete, delete. I miss broken Matt Hardy. It didn't really work, but it was so much fun.
This elevator is bound for Sector 1.
That's what other M meant this whole time. I'm definitely going to steal that for the title of a stream. Because, guess what? We're almost at the end of this stream. Oh, here's a reminder, which I only ever remember to do at the end of the stream. I should really set up a... whatchamacallit? A bot command that automatically fires and reminds people of this. If you do ! We, there's a list of Wii games. Once we finish other M, we'll spin a wheel. And if you want to like try and rig it to be more likely to land on the game you want me to play, off of that list, then, you know, there's a redeem for it. I don't know why I just walked back into this thing like for the third time, but you know, we're making sure we're definitely saved. And I'm gonna switch to